Hey free to play gang, welcome back to another video. So I play around with certain espers and more so for Camille because she is after all R6 and she's also a judge esper. So I wanted to make her work along with the fact that I also have an R6 Zora. So these two espers, they're gonna be perfect for one thing. Well, okay, they're gonna be really good for many things. But the thing is, the reason why their synergy is so good, let's take a look at the team in question. Now, this is going to be another Yunchuan team. Yes, I know a lot of you guys do not have an R2 Yunchuan. A lot of you guys always bring up the fact that my espers are R6, but the thing is, realistically speaking, the R6 does not matter. So Yunchuan R2, that is all you need. Clara R2, that's probably what you need as well. Xuanpin, if you don't have a Xuanpin, then I guess we can swap her with the Alice over here. But the reason why Xuanpin is used here is because she AoE attacks. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me just explain this team. Or rather, I'll just show the equipments for a quick second here. And then we can go on and start the battle and I'll explain the team as we progress along the way. So Camille is going to be pretty key here. And I know a lot of you guys are using espers that are not Camille. So some of you guys are using Embla and Ahmed and some of those multi-hitting espers, and your goal is to nuke the boss as often as possible. Because the thing is, for the soaring goat, dealing damage to the adds don't actually add to your score. You need to deal damage directly to the boss. So the thing is, some players are running crazy high numbers, by the way, like 50 million plus, right? So in the world rankings, for example, a lot of these players, they are actually running the Embla comp. So Yunchuan and Embla, and just trying to pop Embla's debuff as much as possible. I'm not doing that because I feel like it's very RNG heavy, but if you want to have a reference point, I will link another video down in the descriptions for you so that you can have access to an Embla Yunchuan comp instead, which is probably the highest hitting comp right now for the time being. Unless we get better upgrades in the future, then things could change. But for where it stands right now, I think the Embla comp pushes a little bit more DPS than this current comp right now. Alright, so without further ado, let us start and I will explain as we go along. So the thing is, Yunchuan, he is actually not here for DPS. It's not quite the same as your first team, which is not your Mateo team, your Raging Lion team. Yunchuan was a main DPS in that regard. But the thing is, we do not need Yunchuan in that team anymore because it's still going to be extremely easy for us to get EX++. Wait, why can't I move my screen? It's still going to be extremely easy for us to get EX++ with the twins and with like your Ahmed, Alice, and your Mateo, whatever. Okay, in fact, you don't even need Mateo here anymore. You can probably put Li Guang here, and you're still going to be able to get 25 million very easily. So you don't need to worry too much about your first team. You need to worry more about your second team, which is why Yunchuan is being moved from the Raging Lion team into this current team. Okay, so anyway, I talked about that. Now, the reason why Yunchuan is so important here is because he adds a lot of verdict stacks onto the boss. Because whenever you land AoE attacks, for example, or you do any kind of damage to the boss, he's going to gain verdict stacks. And all of his support attacks will also continue to land more verdict stacks. So as you can see here, boom, we got another 5 stacks just like that. And on top of that, he also carries some essential debuffs. So for example, he has the speed down, he has the speed up as well, he has the seer debuff, he has miss rate up, which is, it's helpful when you're reaching like turn 140 or something like that. That actually helps a lot. But aside from that, let's talk a little bit more about Camille, right? So Camille, she has various users here, but number one, she is not a DPS esper. It is kind of contrary to whatever that we understand about her kit, which is double AoE nukes. And there is like a lot of AoE, there is a lot of enemies over here, so she's supposed to do good DPS, right? But that's not the case. So the thing is, she does not do good DPS because she's an AoE esper. Her multipliers are rather low. So the damage that she does to the adds will not actually add on to your score. So you will notice that whenever you land AoE attacks, it's only the damage that is done to the boss will actually amount to the score itself. I think we just did 1.4 million, but our score only went up by like 200,000 or something like that. So Camille, her role is not DPS, her role is actually to add verdict stacks. So the thing is, when she goes from her third skill into her second skill, she's going to instantly apply 20 stacks, right? So especially when she's at R6, she's going to take multiple turns like that, which number one, yes, it does eat turns, but more importantly, it adds 20 stacks of verdict to every single enemy in this entire battlefield. So very nice stuff. And of course, secondly, her third skill applies bleeding stacks, which is very crucial. And the reason for that is because Yunchuan, in order for you to reapply your third eye seal when the boss takes an action, because when the boss takes an action, boom, your third eye seal is gone. In order for Yunchuan to instantly reapply it and make sure that the third eye seal is constantly on the boss, you will need to have some kind of bleeding or poison stack on the boss to trigger a damage on the boss so that Yunchuan will automatically send his dog out to land another layer of third eye seal after the boss takes his turn. So as you can see, the boss is perpetually on the third eye seal, but what you also notice is the boss has had 3 turns of third eye seal, or like right now he has 2 turns of it left, The reason is very simple. Camille's role, her third use rather, is that her first skill also lengthens debuffs. So that's an important thing to have. Right, so as soon as she gets her third skill out, she gets her second skill out, she will then start attacking with her first skill, which will lengthen debuffs on the boss, which includes like poison stacks, which also includes the third eye seal debuff. All these debuffs need to be lengthened so that you have a much easier time scoring better in this particular boss fight. So that's where Xuanpin comes in a little bit. So Xuanpin's third skill does an AoE attack. Her second skill also does an AoE attack. And why AoE attacks are so important is because whenever you land an AoE attack, any one of your allies who is being called in to support by Xuanpin will always hit the boss. Always. So it's kind of like the same thing as like, if let's say Yunchuan uses his third skill, AoE attack, he will send his dog to attack the boss, not the other ads. So the boss always has priority so long as the boss has third eye seal. Same goes for Xuanpin. The boss has priority whenever she uses an AoE attack and calls in an ally to assist. So, that was a mouthful. Xuanpin is amazing here for several reasons. Number one, it's best if she calls in either Yunchuan or Camille in her support attacks, in her AoE support attack. So if she uses a third skill, Camille goes in, perfect. That would lengthen the debuff on the boss, including the poison stacks and including a third eye seal. So now the boss took poison damage and we're actually going to send our dog out to counter attack. But the thing is, we already had like a lengthened third eye seal anyway, so it didn't really matter. But there are some situations where we have third eye seal, but we do not have bleeding stacks, so that matters a lot. Yeah, and of course, Xuanpin also has a AoE defense break, a lot of support, assist, good stuff, attack up buff, that kind of stuff. Now, next, we have Zora. Okay, so Zora is here, and she's kind of like one of the best espers in terms of damage dealing for this content. She will always be one of the best espers for this content. I did not skill her up. I don't think it's necessary to skill her up. Just give her the Ocean set, and it's gonna be fine. Now, Zora, she has a lot of AoE attacks, which is what makes her so strong. So she's always going to damage the boss. Always. So if she uses a third skill, she'll have like double AoE basically. Third skill into her first skill. And if she uses a second skill, she will also AoE because second skill goes straight into her first skill. And then of course her first skill itself is an AoE attack. So she always has AoE attacks. So she's always pushing verdict stacks on the boss. She's always like pushing verdict stacks on everyone and dealing good damage overall. So she helps out a lot in terms of DPS, which is why she is irreplaceable here. And then, hopefully I'm not missing anything by the way. And then we have Clara finally. So the reason why Clara is here is we kind of just need a healer. Any healer will do, but because we are using Xuanpin, I think it's better to use Clara as the healer because Clara can get your espers out of stun. So for example, Zora is now stunned. And I forgot to mention something about Zora. Okay, now Zora is stunned. When Clara takes a turn, she's actually going to get Zora out of the stun. So Clara is quite essential when using her with Xuanpin. Especially when you're using Xuanpin, you kind of want to get your espers out of stuns. Now, another thing about Zora is that her typing is perfect here. You might be surprised. The enemies, I hate this thing so much. You might be surprised, the enemies are wind type, so how is it that Zora has an advantage in this regard? And this is why she has an advantage, because she is a flow type, so the enemies are always going to attack Zora, which means that if you give her the Avatar set, she's possibly going to counter attack very often. So what I noticed is that whenever the enemies, like those ads, they attack Zora, she has a 25% chance of counter attacking. I think it's 25 or is it 20, I can't remember, but if she counter attacks, she will then land an AoE attack which will also damage the boss, so her counter attacks would then push verdict stacks, you push like a lot of extra DPS. So you notice that at the end of this run, Zora is dealing like a lot of damage, like a crazy amount of damage, and you notice that Camille is not doing much. Yunchuan is also not doing all that much. Surprisingly, Xuanpin is actually doing pretty decent because she has double AoE attacks. So that's why Camille is doing okay. But yeah, so this is like the off-meta team, so to speak. I mean, there is Yunchuan here, so it's instantly meta. I mean, there's Zora as well, it's instantly meta. I think for the most part, it's just the use of Camille here that is very unorthodox. Oh my god, that's a hard word. Like I said, I needed a poison esper so that we can maintain the third eye seal. You can of course use Embla. Embla also has bleeding stacks. Sorry, did I say poison stacks? I mean bleeding stacks. Embla also has bleeding stacks, so she's gonna work out to ensure that Yunchuan always has his third eye seal on the boss at all times. That's the most important thing. But of course, using the Embla team is a lot more RNG centric. You're not always going to be able to get a good score. You either get a really good score or a really bad score. It's one of those. And we're about to reach the end. And we are at the end. Okay, so we didn't manage to break our high score, which was 45 million, but we were kind of close. So I think this is one of like the better runs, one of the more cleaner runs, but it's not going to perform as well as a typical Embla comp. So the thing is, for Embla comps, you're either doing poor or you're doing really well. And when you're talking about really well, you're pushing a lot more score. So for content like this, where you can just repeat this indefinitely, then it might make more sense to use an RNG centered team as opposed to something a little bit more consistent like mine is. Anyway, before I forget, let's take a look at the scoreboard itself. So Yunchuan is dealing decent damage, like I said, decent, not a lot of damage. It's not quite the same as in Raging Lion, where he's actually one of the much more obvious damage dealers, right? But over here, he is kind of on par with Camille, so they're both not really doing a lot of DPS. Their roles are all as I have mentioned in the video itself. Zora is going to be the main Esper here dealing the damage, and as you can see, Champagne is also doing pretty okay because she has double AoE attacks, like I said. This kind of summarizes the usefulness of each of these Esper. So the thing is, if you're using a Yunchuan R2, you're not sure how you want to build him, I would highly recommend you that you just build him a little bit more speedy for more support, to just throw his third skill a little bit more often, which also means running him with the Ocean set is probably going to be a really good idea. And you might also want to give him a little bit more accuracy, and it might not make so much sense to give him all that much attack power or like crit damage, for example, because he's not going to be pushing all that much DPS anyway. And the same goes for Camille as well. You don't really need to focus too much on her DPS, and she's still going to perform pretty well. So as you can see, my Camille is not really built for DPS. She is more built for accuracy and a little bit of speed, but of course the Ocean set so that she can cycle her skills more effectively. But yeah, anyway, I know this is pay to win content, and I know you guys don't really like to see pay to win content, but I still hope that this video at least serves some purpose to help some of you guys out there, be it like 10 of you guys or maybe even 5 of you guys. If this helped you get a better score, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be super excited to know that. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's content regardless. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Derry Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.